Don't skip. There is a reason this story found you today. A wedding was only moments away from beginning. But one woman suddenly walked away in tears. And before anyone could stop her, she whispered one name. Yours. No one understood why the groom's mother abandoned the ceremony. Until a hidden truth, buried for years, finally began to rise to the surface. Listen carefully. My child, there are moments in life when silence becomes heavier than any spoken word. There are moments when a heart carries a secret for so long that even a celebration cannot hide its weight anymore. This is one of those moments. Imagine a wedding hall filled with bright lights, smiling faces, joyful music, and relatives eagerly waiting for the ceremony to begin. Every chair is occupied, every decoration shines perfectly, and everyone believes this day will become one of the happiest memories in the family's history. Yet behind all those smiling faces stands one woman whose heart has been fighting a battle that no one else can see. She is your soulmate's mother. While everyone else is celebrating, she cannot stop remembering a promise she once made. And a promise she once broke. Every time she looks at the wedding stage, she feels as though something inside her is pulling her backward. She tries to convince herself that today is the right day, that everything happening is for the best, but her heart refuses to agree. The louder the wedding music becomes, the louder her conscience begins to speak. She remembers a conversation from years ago. One she believed would disappear forever. She remembers hearing your name for the very first time. At that moment, she never imagined that one simple name would one day become impossible for her to forget. She thought time would erase every memory. She thought distance would solve every problem. She thought that keeping two people apart would protect her family. But now, standing only a few steps away from the wedding stage, she realizes that some truths never disappear. They simply wait for the right moment to return. Don't skip. Because what happens next changes everything she thought she knew. She quietly steps away from the crowd without telling anyone where she is going. The relatives continue laughing, photographers continue taking pictures, and guests remain completely unaware that the most important person in the wedding has suddenly disappeared. She walks down a long hallway inside the venue until she reaches a quiet corner where no one can hear her crying. For the first time in years, she allows herself to cry without pretending to be strong. The tears fall faster than she can wipe them away. She closes her eyes and whispers something she has been afraid to say aloud for a very long time. We made a mistake. Those 4 words feel heavier than anything she has ever spoken. She knows that once those words leave her lips, there is no returning to the comfortable lie everyone has been living. Memories begin flooding her mind. She remembers the day someone warned her about you. She remembers believing rumors without asking questions. She remembers listening to people who claimed they knew what was best for her family. She remembers encouraging distance instead of understanding. At the time, she truly believed she was protecting her child. She never realized she might actually be protecting a lie while pushing away the one person who genuinely cared. Every decision she made seemed reasonable then, but now every memory feels painfully different. Suddenly, all the missing pieces begin connecting in ways she never expected. Every strange silence. Every sleepless night. Every forced smile she saw on your soulmate's face. Every unexplained sadness finally starts making sense. Far away from the wedding hall, completely unaware of the emotional storm unfolding, you continue living your ordinary day. You have no idea that somewhere, someone who once misunderstood you is desperately wishing for another chance. You do not know that a mother who once doubted your place in her child's life is now questioning every decision she ever made. You have moved forward as best as you could, carrying unanswered questions inside your heart. Some days you convinced yourself that everything happened for a reason. Other days you silently wondered whether the story had ended before it truly had the chance to begin. Yet today, without your knowledge, invisible pieces are beginning to move. Conversations you cannot hear are taking place. Hearts you cannot see are changing. Regrets that remained hidden for years are finally refusing to stay buried. Sometimes life changes long before we notice it. Sometimes the first sign of a new chapter appears in someone else's heart before it reaches our own. Back inside the wedding hall, people slowly begin noticing that the groom's mother has not returned. Confused whispers spread through the guests. Some assume she became emotional because her child is getting married. Others believe she may not be feeling well. No one suspects the truth. No one imagines that she is standing outside the building with tears in her eyes, staring at the sky as if searching for the courage to undo years of silence. She reaches into her handbag and pulls out an old folded piece of paper she has secretly carried for years. The edges have faded. The handwriting has become slightly blurred. Yet one word remains perfectly clear. Your name. She gently touches it with trembling fingers before whispering, "Should have found you much sooner." At that very moment, someone unexpectedly approaches her from behind and quietly asks, "Are you finally ready to tell everyone what really happened?" Her heartbeat nearly stops. She slowly turns around and freezes when she recognizes the face standing before her. The moment she recognized that face, every memory she had spent years trying to bury came rushing back. It was someone who had witnessed everything from the very beginning. Someone who knew the conversations that had taken place behind closed doors. Someone who had warned her not to make decisions based on fear and assumptions. For a few long seconds, neither of them spoke. The sounds of the wedding celebration echoed faintly in the distance, but in that quiet corner, it felt as though time itself had stopped. The woman standing before your soulmate's mother looked into her tear-filled eyes and softly said, "You still have a chance." But not for long. Those words struck her heart harder than anything she had heard all day. She lowered her head, unable to hide the guilt she had carried for so many years. "I thought I was protecting my child," she whispered. "Instead, I may have taken away the person who truly understood them." The silence that followed was heavier than tears. She finally admitted something she had never confessed to anyone. Years ago, when your name first entered their family, she had been surrounded by voices telling her to keep you away. Some claimed you would never fit into the family. Others insisted that another path would bring greater happiness. She listened because she believed those voices loved her child as much as she did. She never stopped to ask whether those opinions were built on truth or fear. Now, standing outside the wedding hall, she realized that every decision made without understanding leaves behind a wound that time alone cannot heal. Don't skip. Because the truth is only beginning to reveal itself. Inside the wedding hall, the atmosphere slowly began to change. Guests noticed that the music had paused. The bride's family exchanged uncertain glances. A few relatives quietly searched every hallway, hoping to find the missing mother before rumors spread. Your soulmate stood near the wedding stage trying to remain calm, but something inside refused to settle. There was an unfamiliar feeling. As though an invisible part of the past had suddenly returned. They looked toward the entrance again and again, expecting their mother to appear with a reassuring smile. Instead, only silence answered. No explanation came. No message arrived. Deep inside, they began asking themselves a question they had avoided for years. Why do I suddenly feel like someone important is missing from this moment? That feeling refused to disappear. It grew stronger with every passing minute. Even surrounded by hundreds of people, they felt strangely alone. Their eyes wandered across the crowd without knowing who they were searching for. Their heart already knew the answer long before their mind was willing to accept it. Meanwhile, your soulmate's mother made a decision she never thought she would have the courage to make. She wiped away her tears, took a slow breath, and unlocked her phone. Her hands trembled so badly that she almost dropped it. She searched through old contacts. Contacts she had promised herself she would never open again. Most numbers had changed. Some people had disappeared from her life completely. But one small clue remained. An old message. Almost forgotten. Containing a place connected to you. She stared at it for several moments before whispering, "Please. Let it not be too late." Without returning to the wedding stage, she quietly walked toward the parking area. Every step felt heavier than the last, yet she refused to stop. She no longer cared what relatives might say. She no longer worried about the embarrassment of leaving a wedding behind. At that moment, only one thing mattered. She had to find you. She had to look into your eyes and tell you the truth she had hidden for far too long. Whether you forgave her or not was no longer the question. The question was whether she would forgive herself if she remained silent one moment longer. Far away, your day continued as usual. You had no idea that someone was driving toward a future neither of you expected. Perhaps you were working. Perhaps you were quietly enjoying an ordinary afternoon. Perhaps you had already accepted that certain chapters of life would never reopen. The memories still visited you from time to time, but you had learned not to chase answers that never came. You believed the silence had spoken its final word. Yet destiny has a strange way of moving when people finally choose honesty over fear. Sometimes the greatest turning point begins not with a grand announcement, but with one person's decision to admit they were wrong. Without realizing it, your life was already beginning to shift. Roads that had remained separated for years were slowly moving toward the same destination once again. As the car pulled away from the wedding venue, your soulmate's mother glanced one final time through the rearview mirror. The beautifully decorated hall grew smaller with every passing second, but strangely, the weight on her heart began to feel lighter. She knew there would be consequences. The family would ask questions. The guests would demand explanations. The ceremony might even come to a complete stop. None of that frightened her anymore. What frightened her was the possibility that she might reach you too late. After life had already taken you somewhere she could never follow. She pressed the accelerator a little harder, determined not to waste another moment. Then, just as her phone lit up with an incoming call from the wedding hall, another notification appeared beneath it. It contained only one sentence. But that single sentence caused her hands to freeze on the steering wheel. Someone else has already gone looking for you. The moment those words appeared on her phone, her heartbeat quickened. She ignored the repeated calls from the wedding venue and stared at the message again, hoping she had misunderstood it. But the sentence remained exactly the same: someone else has already gone looking for you. Her mind immediately filled with questions. Who could it be? Who still remembered where you might be after all this time? Who had learned the truth before she finally gathered the courage to act? A strange mixture of fear and hope settled over her. If someone had already reached you, perhaps there was still time to repair what had been broken. But another thought frightened her even more. What if they reached you for the wrong reason? What if another misunderstanding was about to begin before the first one had even been corrected? She tightened her grip on the steering wheel and whispered to herself, "No, this time I have to tell the truth before anyone else changes the story. Don't skip." Because the next few moments would reveal that the past had never been as simple as everyone believed. Back at the wedding hall, confusion had completely replaced celebration. The music had stopped, conversations had become whispers, and every guest sensed that something important had happened. Your soulmate stood in the center of the hall surrounded by worried relatives, but no explanation satisfied the growing uneasiness inside. One family member suggested delaying the ceremony. Another insisted that everything would return to normal in a few minutes. Yet your soulmate could not shake the feeling that this had nothing to do with wedding stress. Their heart kept pulling them toward memories they had locked away years ago. A memory of a conversation that ended too suddenly. A smile they never truly forgot. A goodbye that never felt complete. Without realizing it, they quietly walked away from the stage and entered the very hallway where their mother had been crying only minutes earlier. There, on a nearby chair, they noticed something unexpected. a folded handkerchief still damp with tears. And beside it lay an old photograph that must have slipped from her purse in her hurry to leave. Curious, they picked it up. The picture had faded with time, but one familiar face immediately caught their attention. Their own eyes widened. "How is this still here?" they whispered. Someone had carefully preserved that photograph for years. Even when everyone claimed the past was over. Meanwhile, your soulmate's mother continued driving, replaying every mistake in her mind. She remembered the day she first chose to believe gossip instead of asking honest questions. She remembered every opportunity she had to seek the truth but allowed fear to make the decision instead. She remembered watching her child slowly lose their happiness without understanding why. She had blamed work, stress, growing older. Anything except the real reason. Only much later did she realize that the brightest smiles often hide the deepest heartbreak. Then another memory surfaced, one she had tried hardest to forget. There had been a letter. A letter addressed to her. It had arrived years ago, but before she ever opened it, another relative insisted it contained nothing important. Trusting those words, she placed it inside a drawer and never looked at it again. Months later, when she finally found the unopened envelope, it had already disappeared. She never discovered who removed it, or what message it carried. For years she believed it no longer mattered. But today, every forgotten detail suddenly seemed connected. Every unanswered question pointed toward the same truth. Someone had worked very hard to keep you and her child apart. Far away, you sensed nothing unusual, yet an unexpected feeling lingered in your heart. It was impossible to explain. The day looked ordinary, but something felt different. Perhaps it was only a memory returning without warning. Perhaps it was simply one of those quiet moments when the past briefly visits before disappearing again. You paused for a moment and looked toward the sky, wondering why an old chapter had suddenly crossed your mind. Little did you know, the answers you had stopped searching for were now racing toward you from different directions. One person was coming with regret. Another was coming with hidden knowledge. And somewhere between them lay a truth capable of changing every life connected to it. Just then, your soulmate's mother's phone rang again. This time it was not a family member from the wedding hall. It was an unfamiliar number. She hesitated before answering. A calm voice spoke only a few words. "I found the letter." Her entire body froze. The letter everyone thought was gone. "I know who hid it. And I know why." She struggled to breathe as the voice continued. "If you truly want to find them, don't come alone. Because once this letter is opened, your entire family will finally learn who separated them. And the wedding may never continue the same way again. Don't skip. Because this is the moment every hidden truth has been leading toward." Your soulmate's mother ended the call with trembling hands, but for the first time in years, fear no longer controlled her. She followed the directions she had just been given until she arrived at a quiet little building on the edge of town. Standing outside was an elderly woman holding a small wooden box that looked untouched by time. Without saying a word, she gently placed it into the mother's hands. "I've protected this long enough," she said softly. "The truth belongs with the people whose lives were changed by it." Slowly, the mother opened the box. Inside rested the missing letter. Still carefully folded. Still sealed. Waiting all these years for the moment it was finally meant to be read. As she carefully unfolded the paper, tears filled her eyes before she reached the second line. Every sentence destroyed another false belief she had carried for years. The letter contained no anger, no blame, no bitterness. Instead, it spoke with kindness, respect, and hope. It explained that you had never wished to separate anyone from their family. It revealed that you had quietly stepped away because you believed their happiness mattered more than your own. It admitted that although your heart had been broken, you refused to create conflict inside the family you once dreamed of joining. Reading those words shattered every story she had been told. She realized the rumors she had trusted had never reflected the person you truly were. At that very moment, back at the wedding venue, the atmosphere had become impossible to ignore. Guests whispered among themselves. Some had already begun leaving their seats. The decorations remained beautiful, but the joy that once filled the hall had quietly disappeared. Your soulmate stood in complete silence, unable to explain why their heart felt heavier with every passing minute. Then one elderly relative slowly approached and spoke words no one expected to hear. "There is something your mother never wanted you to know." Every conversation in the room stopped. The relative continued, "Years ago, someone convinced this family that they were protecting you by keeping one person away. Today your mother finally discovered she was protecting a lie instead. Your soulmate could barely breathe. The memories they had pushed aside for so many years suddenly returned with overwhelming clarity. Every unanswered question. Every goodbye that never made sense. Every sleepless night. Everything now pointed toward the same name. Yours. Meanwhile, your soulmate's mother refused to waste another second. Holding the letter tightly against her heart, she drove toward the place where she had been told you could be found. Every mile felt like a chance to repair a mistake she could never fully erase. She rehearsed countless apologies in her mind, but none of them seemed large enough for the pain that had been caused. She knew forgiveness could never be demanded. It could only be received if it was freely given. As she finally reached the location, she stepped out of the car and looked around with hopeful eyes. There you were, completely unaware that your life was about to change forever. For several long moments, she could not move. She simply stood there, overcome by emotion. Then, gathering every ounce of courage she had left, she slowly walked toward you. Before you could even ask who she was or why she had come, tears rolled down her face. She quietly held out the old letter and whispered, "I should have found you years ago. I believed people who never knew your heart. I let fear make decisions that love should have made. I cannot change the past. But I could not allow another day to pass without telling you the truth. You looked at the letter with quiet surprise. The paper was old, but the words inside still carried the same sincerity they had on the day they were written. As you finished reading it, the silence between you and your soulmate's mother no longer felt uncomfortable. It felt honest. There were no dramatic speeches. No accusations. No desire to blame anyone. Only the quiet understanding that one misunderstanding, repeated often enough, had changed the course of many lives. The mother gently said, "Whether you choose to forgive me or not, I will accept your decision. But my child deserves to know the truth. They deserve to know that you never walked away because you stopped caring." Those words carried more weight than any explanation ever could. Only a short time later, your soulmate arrived after leaving the wedding venue behind. The moment your eyes met, neither of you rushed forward. Neither of you spoke immediately. Sometimes the deepest emotions do not need words. Years of silence, regret, hope, and unanswered questions all seem to disappear in that single moment. Your soulmate looked at the letter, then at their mother, and finally back at you. The truth had finally reached everyone it was meant to reach. No hidden secret remained. No false story had any power left. Whatever the future would become, it would no longer be built on fear or misunderstanding. It would begin with honesty. The wedding that everyone believed could never stop had already become unimportant compared to the truth that finally came to light. Some journeys are not about finding the perfect ending. They are about finding the courage to face the truth, even when it arrives years later. Your soulmate's mother walked away from the wedding in tears because, for the first time, she understood that no celebration can bring lasting peace if it is built upon a hidden lie. By searching for you, she was not only trying to find a person. She was trying to find the missing piece of her family's peace.